I'm Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., and this is how to get your money right. We're pleased to welcome to How to Get Your Money Right one of our nation's leading entrepreneurs, John Pasmore, the founder and president of Lattimore AI. Welcome to How to Get Your Money Right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
So, you know, there are entrepreneurs and there are entrepreneurs, but there are not that many entrepreneurs that have an AI company. Tell us, John, sort of your evolution from communications, media, entertainment into AI.
My evolution really started, I think, with education. I had a business degree, but I went back to Columbia going part-time while I was in the media space, working on a computer science degree, which I think gave me the ability to really see the opportunity as it was really coming about in 2023 when OpenAI launched their first public version really of ChatGPT. And I looked at it, you know, I saw what was happening with the bias and inaccuracies, and I just thought, hey, that's an opportunity. If somebody could fix that, that's a tremendous opportunity that OpenAI was creating. So we launched Lattimore, then brought it to market in January 24.
You were at the right place at the right time.
I would have to agree with that in this case, yeah. And not only that, we were able to quickly form a business. You know, one of the things that we saw early on with OpenAI, we were all impressed with the technology, but then we saw that it was demonstrating bias and inaccuracies, particularly around Black and brown people, around diverse populations. And from my perspective, I looked at that as kind of a technical issue. It's really in the training data and how these models are informed. So we quickly stood up Lattimore AI. We launched in January of 24 with a product that we've managed to evolve fairly quickly. That's essentially addressing the bias in AI.
What is the mission of Lattimore AI?
Specifically, the issue that we're working on is how Black and brown people are represented in AI and what the cultural fluency is of these machines. And as you can imagine, when you start to look at Black and brown people in Europe or Africa or different places in the world, there's different information that's required. So we're focused on the story, the history of Black and brown people here in the United States as a first step.
How to Get Your Money Right focuses on what strategies, what missions in the business world can lead to the attainment of wealth.
Yeah, yeah.
The whole economic development question that has persisted in the African American community, but also in other communities of color.
Yeah.
Underserved communities haven't been able to cross that threshold of sustainable economic development leading toward wealth. So the question is to you, can AI help get more business leaders, more entrepreneurs in a pathway toward attaining wealth?
It certainly can. I think a lot of the capabilities that we're seeing now, or one of the important capabilities that we're seeing now, is the ability for you to just say in words, hey, I want an application that does X, Y, and Z, and it'll write the code for you. So the barrier of needing to be able to write code or be able to hire a programmer is falling. But even taking a step back in terms of, you know, one of the things that I think really enabled me to launch the company, you hear the saying, your network is your net worth. And, you know, I have always been focused as a business person on expanding my network, on maintaining relationships, because when you launch a young business, you need to raise capital sometimes, you need customers, and sometimes, you know, that first customer could be super valuable because it pays a lot of the bills. So, you know, I think that was the case for me, is that I was able to lean into my network, not only come up with the idea and be able to technically build a product, but lean into my network to say, hey, this is an opportunity, and, you know, raise funding through the network, find early customers. Miles College is our our first client, institutional client, and that comes directly
Miles College is in Alabama.
in Alabama, and that comes from a personal relationship. Yeah.
Your network determines your net worth.
Yeah, it's an old saying, but makes a lot of sense. And now you have technology, things like LinkedIn, where you can extend your network without even going out and networking.
What would you recommend of how to get a handle on the innovations that AI is making possible?
I think you always have to follow your own passion, whether you're an artist or whether you want to be a developer, whatever it is. Just look at how the tool is impacting the things that you love doing, because ultimately, as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, you want to do something where you have a natural passion, where you kind of get up in the morning or go to sleep at night. That's what you're thinking about. And then, if that's the case, it's not really work. You're kind of doing something you love. And then just look at the tool as how it can help you. Now we have tools that make writing a business plan really pretty simple. Again, using voice prompts. Mm-hmm. I gave the new Gemini tool the other day a website, and it created an infographic. So even if you have a competitive website, you say, "Hey, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it better." You can use these tools to really create graphics or even a strategic plan, a business plan on how to get it done.
I believe there are over 200 African-American owned newspapers around the country. And certainly the work you've done with Amsterdam News and others, that's a good model.
Yeah.
Because most of these publishers are also trying to get ahead of the curve and not be behind the curve when it comes to technological innovation.
Well, they should understand two things. Number one, yes, you could use it in creating your product, but the legacy or the library that you created is also valuable to these other AI companies. So how do you collect that legacy in a digital manner so you can license it to some of these AI companies and maybe earn recurring revenue?
Great. It's another revenue stream.
It is another revenue stream.
In the communities which we work and serve, there's sometimes fear of technology, fear of change, fear of innovation. As an entrepreneur who just started this great company, obviously you didn't have a phobia about innovation.
Right.
Can you tell us the importance of having a perspective that's always forward-leaning than a perspective that's kind of anchored only to the past?
Yeah, I think there's a little dichotomy there, and especially the African American community that's also looked at as being early adopters. So whether it was games or mobile phones, we see these big companies that are always looking to the Black community to be the early adopters. So there's a part of our community that is fairly forward-looking. And that's, we need that. We need that because that becomes kind of the entry point for some of these technologies into the broader community. And with AI in particular, this, from my perspective, I look at AI as could change everything. It could change education, could change a lot in the job market. So it's something that we really have to pay attention to.
When you say it could change for the better?
We don't know. The funny thing is with what OpenAI did is they released a product that wasn't fully baked or fully tested. But it created an AI arms race because all these other large companies, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, had been working on the same technology for years. But once OpenAI released it to the public, then everybody's kind of forced to jump in and release their product to the public. And we saw the mess, and we still see it. Elon Musk's AI entry, Grok, saying something that's, I would say, fairly anti-Semitic. So these models can still make mistakes, so to speak, again, based on their training data. We are, testing these and helping these companies build these machines. And we don't know the impact on jobs. We see, various prognostications about, hey, this is going to have a negative impact or it's going to create new jobs. We actually don't know, but we do know that especially for young people, they need to be fluent in AI.
What would be your recommendation to public school systems around the country? What should be the entry point in the curriculum for computer science, for innovation and data analysis?
Yeah, I mean, with these new tools, right, there's a big fear about diminishing the critical thinking ability of whoever's using it because you can simply ask a question. You don't have to have technical knowledge. You just ask a question in words and it can give you an answer, meaning you're not necessarily doing the work. And how does not doing the work affect your true understanding? So I think we do need to be a little bit careful. We were talking a little bit earlier about how in computer science, what you're learning to really do is problem solve. And I think that's the skill that we really want to have young people retain, that capability of how to approach a problem, how to frame it, and how to figure out a solution for that problem, and in a step-by-step manner. So to the degree of how young, I think coding itself maybe, I don't know, we're seeing tools already that can write a lot of the code. So we expect that coding itself will change over the next several years. You may not need to learn exactly how to code as it was maybe even 3 or 4 years ago, but it's still a good practice because what you're learning when you learn to code is really you're learning logic. You're learning, you're kind of understanding, well, how am I giving the instructions to the machine, a computer, to solve a problem in a step-by-step manner? And I think that that's always going to be a great skill.
And it seems to me the mission of Latimer is to make sure that the playing ground is level around machine learning, artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, on the homepage of Latimer, we say AI for everyone because we think that everybody wants AI that is trained on the entire history of everybody that's actually built this country and this, the civilization as we know it. And that's how we'd like to see AI adopted, really, with everyone participating.
Do you see AI being a place where people from different cultures, different racial backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds can approach AI in a way where they see the commonness or the oneness of our humanity and not just so much the diversity of our humanity?
It has that potential. I was reading a Substack article by a VC recently. He talked about the rush to AI versus what is your belief system. And I thought that was interesting in the sense that we do have fundamental beliefs as a country. Sometimes we stray from that to the degree that AI can surface those beliefs. What we have right now is a country, where we've been somewhat divided. Right now we have so much noise, and I think it's very hard, even in social media, to determine what's really true, or even in traditional media now, which has been disrupted. It's become, factions. So maybe AI can kind of bring us back to what the common denominator is and what we're really trying to build as a country, hopefully.
When you use AI, how do you construct the question?
It depends on what you're trying to get to. Generally speaking, though, the longer your question, the better your response. If you can frame AI, you can tell it, well, speak to me like I'm a 5-year-old. If you don't know, what have domain knowledge in an area, hey, I'm going to ask a question about quantum physics and speak to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So it's going to kind of break it down into very small pieces so it can bring you along that journey to educate you, versus just saying, hey, I want the answer to this question as if you're doing homework. It'll just give you the answer, but you won't understand necessarily how it got that answer.
What if you were a parent of some of these children? What would you instruct? Would you just let everything go, or should there be some structure on how computer science how AI is used in the home?
Yeah, we're going to need a new level of oversight in some degree from parents in the responsible use of AI, because it's Sam Altman, the founder or CEO of OpenAI, ChatGPT, likes to say, "Hey, my AI, ChatGPT, has read the entire internet and remembers it." So that's actually true, that AI can read the entire internet, everything that it can see, and remember it. So when you're speaking to it, it has that basis to respond. But we don't only want our kids to understand or just get a quick answer, because if you're not doing the work, you might not understand the topic. You might not understand even how to get that same answer without the machine. So, we do need parents to keep an eye on young people and make sure, especially if they were doing their homework, you have this, we're in this period where, AI is racing ahead, but maybe the school system that their children are in hasn't figured out what to do with AI. And even in higher ed and even in colleges, we have colleges where, the professor can go all, some, or none, no AI used in their class. It's up to them. A lot of educational institutions haven't figured out, what are we going to do with this? Because it gives young people the ability to do their homework in seconds, but maybe they're not really learning.
In the panoply of AI companies, do you have some dialogue with the Altmans of the world or the people that own Facebook, Instagram?
I would say the most conversations early on with Google, and we'd like to continue to have conversations with those companies, and we certainly use them. The underpinnings of our technology. We have a database. Latimer is actually its own database. We created something, it's called a RAG, meaning that our database sits on top of other foundation models. So if you go to Latimer AI, you have a choice of 10 different models that you can use. And they're all using our database, Latimer, which again has more information on Black and brown history and culture. So whether you want Latimer plus OpenAI or Latimer plus Google or Latimer plus, Anthropic is another big company in the space, you have all of those choices.
Even though we have rapid growth, it's not closed. It's not a closed industry.
No, I mean, most people would assume that we're kind of in the first inning. So this is like the very beginnings of the internet, so to speak. So,
Really?
There's a ton of
Because most
opportunity.
I talk to think we're in the ninth inning.
Yeah.
You said we're in inning one.
Yeah.
That's interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, OpenAI really came out in 2023, with their first big public launch. So I would say that we're very early on. There's a bunch of new technologies that are still on the horizon, whether it's quantum computing. We see this in this most recent release from Google. They've migrated from NVIDIA to using their own chips. So there's still a lot of moving parts. And, ultimately, a big part of the user base of this is going to be young people. And I think that products can be built from that perspective, that maybe young people want to see a different AI than Google wants to present.
When I was a kid, I used to read Scientific American.
Yes.
What books were most impactful to you to go into computer science?
My dad had a radio repair shop way back in the day, and so it was always in the house. There was an oscilloscope. There was all this stuff that I don't know, just made me kind of curious about technology. So I think that was the biggest thing for me. And then even in the media business, we came into the media business at a time when you could create, what we see now in video, you saw in desktop publishing, where you had traditional media that took a lot of work, let's say to make a newspaper or magazine, but suddenly you can do it on a personal computer. So whether it's Vibe or Source, or we had OneWorld, you could create that piece of media in an office as opposed to in a factory. And so I think we're seeing the same thing now, where people are looking at video or image creation or text creation. Hey, these are young machines. This is young technology, and obviously there's a tremendous amount of innovation in our community. So I think that we'll find uses of this technology in new ways, and hopefully the ability, even now that you can use some of this technology to write code, that's no longer a barrier. So whatever the application, whatever you think that your phone or your computer should be able to do, you can create that platform, that application now.
You mentioned that your focus at this stage of your company is the United States. Is the United States competitive on the global stage? Is China ahead of the United States in AI? Is Russia ahead of the United States in AI? Or is the United States ahead of those two?
It's hard to say. From a consumer standpoint, it does seem like we're on the leading edge. China has an AI platform called DeepSeek and others, DeepSeek being the most well-known, that seems very, very advanced. Obviously, we don't know, we have no visibility into how much state funding they receive to create what they've built. But in terms of functionality, very advanced. There's a whole, we're talking generally about consumer AI, but then you have the Palantirs and the Peter Thiels of the world that are creating AI for the Defense Department. And so, I think what we've seen in maybe the Ukraine or even in Israel is that all of this AI technology has another application. And in some ways, we're kind of beginning to see what the defense applications are. And that's, I think, where we're competing perhaps with China, where our current administration doesn't want to see any roadblocks for our domestic creation of AI, because they frame it in that sense. Like there's somewhat of an arms race in terms of human capital, as well as the amount of money that it takes to build some of these foundation models.
There are over 120 HBCUs, historically black college universities in America. Tell us, have you had a chance to intersect with any of these HBCUs on the mission of Latimer AI?
Yeah, well, we've had tremendous success with HBCUs. We have a very talented PhD student working with us now from Morgan State, who's doing tremendous work for us. And all I see is talent. We've done a trial at Morehouse. We've deployed to Bennett and Tennessee State University. Miles College in Alabama was the first university in the United States to license Latimer, and we appreciate that. Universities like Southern New Hampshire University, they're just integrating this into their computer science classes, where they have a robot car that's using our model to take voice prompts and translate that into the direction of the car. And we're also having a conversation at the same university with their nursing students. So we can add additional materials, training materials, to make Latimer smart for a specific domain.
John Pasmore, given your significant career in computer science and technology, today, what gives you your greatest hope?
I think I'm just an optimist by nature, and I just see, I've spent so much time over the last year really on different college campuses, from, Miles in Alabama and down in Texas and North Carolina, that you just see so much intelligence and innovation with young people, that I think that they're going to take this technology and run in new ways. We work with an artist, Delphine Diallo, who looks at AI as extending her capabilities. She can do things now as an artist that she never thought or might have taken a year in the past to do. So I think, as an optimist, that's what I look at. Like, use this as as an extension. Maybe it would have taken you 6 months to code something up, and maybe you wouldn't have spent that 6 months, but now it might take a matter of days with an AI assistant to do that. So what new innovations will that lead to?
John Pasmore, founder and president of Latimer AI. Thank you for joining How to Get Your Money Right.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.